Hey, I'm Marc Randolph, co-founder, first CEO of Netflix, and I'm on Sachin Syal's Ochakde show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Ochakde Show. We're Silicon Valley's first business, tech, and self-improvement podcast for teens, hosted by a teen me. I'm Sachin Syal. I'm an 18-year-old award-winning entrepreneur, podcaster, author, and student from the Bay Area. And I interview remarkable and influential entrepreneurs, executives, investors, leaders, and inspiring individuals from all walks of life so we can learn from their stories and level up ourselves. I'm also the co-founder of 3doshas.com. We're a coaching company transforming lives with 3dosha science from yoga and Ayurveda. The purpose of this show is to inspire you to go for it, which is what the Punjabi word ochakde means. Today, our very special guest is Marc Randolph, who is the co-founder and first CEO of Netflix. Marc is a veteran Silicon Valley entrepreneur, advisor, and investor with a career spanning 5 decades. As co-founder and first CEO of Netflix, he laid much of the foundation for a service that has grown to over 300 million subscribers and fundamentally altered how the world experiences media. Netflix is currently valued at $521 billion. Marc has founded or co-founded 6 other successful startups. Most recently, Marc co-founded analytics software company Looker Data Sciences, which was acquired by Google in 2019 for $2.6 billion. He's the author of the internationally best-selling memoir That Will Never Work, the birth of Netflix and the amazing life of an idea. He's a host of the top 10 Apple podcast That Will Never Work, and he's also a judge and investor on Entrepreneur Magazine's Elevator Pitch television series. So welcome to the Ochakde Show, Marc. It's truly an honor and privilege to have you here. Thank you so much for doing this. It means a lot. I really appreciate it. How are you, and what's new and exciting?
Oh, well, first of all, thanks for having me. This has been a long time coming, and so I'm glad we could finally pull it off. Let's see, what's new and exciting? Well, you kind of know that one of my big things in life is balance, and hopefully we'll talk a bit about that
Yep.
later. But it's funny, I've been pushing the limits on it. We recently got a small piece of property up in the Sierras, which is off the grid. So there is no cell phone, no telephone, no internet.
Wow.
I've been spending a bunch of time there, and I got to tell you, that really forces balance. But it's a kind of a neat experience, and I guess for me, it's new and exciting to be spending all this time away from my phone, away from the internet, and coming back pretty energized about it.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I do have questions about that too. We're going to talk about that viral LinkedIn post for sure. Can you bring us back to your teen years? Because this show is for teens. That's usually what I ask my guests. I'm curious, what was teenage Marc passionate about and into, and what attracted you to entrepreneurship and tech?
So teenage Mark was pretty typical teenage Mark. Maybe I drank a little bit more than most teens back at the time. But I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. It certainly wasn't, I had grown up, I want to be a veterinarian or I had the slightest clue. And so I was going with that usual trepidation of what my future would bring post-teen. Uh, but in retrospect, I was kind of laying the groundwork for being an entrepreneur. Because what I did when I was a teen is I did kind of the same thing I did as an adult, which is I started things. We started a newspaper, a different newspaper when I was in high school. We put on plays when I was in high school. I just was like I am now, where I'd see something missing from the world and say, how do I fill this? I was just kind of insatiably curious and just so fortunate to be able to screw around and try things when the consequences were so minimal. It was looking back on it, it was like the ideal prep for what I eventually ended up doing.
Nice. I mean, being curious and starting things is exactly what entrepreneurs do. So I guess you had it since day one. I love that. I'd love to hear your story. How did you come up with the idea of Netflix, and why did you call it Netflix? And I'm curious also, how's the company different today than when you first started it?
Well, wow, that's a whole bunch of questions all wrapped into. It'll take a big box to fit all those in. The first thing is that when people ask about, where did the idea come from, they always kind of expect that epiphany story. Like I
Yeah.
was walking down the street and boom, there's the idea, fully formed, ready to go, of this video streaming service that produces its own movies and blah, blah, blah. But of course, it doesn't happen like that. In fact, I wasn't even that into movies.
I
Um,
see.
it more happened because this is quite a while ago. This is back in 1996, 97. And the internet was pretty much in its infancy. And my previous career, the thing I had done before the internet came along, was I was a direct marketing guy, junk
Nice.
mail and direct response TV and catalogs and things like that. And so when I looked at the internet, what I saw was the opportunity to sell things directly.
Mm.
So when I finally had this opportunity to start another company, when my previous one was acquired, um, it was, well, I want to do something in e-commerce, but I had no idea what. And I was lucky enough to have become friends with a guy named Reed Hastings, who played a pretty big part in the Netflix story. And both Reed and I were losing our jobs at the same time, and we were brainstorming ideas for a company to start. And we used to commute back and forth to work every day, and I would just pitch him ideas. And it wasn't like they were all movie ideas. Like I pitched him, one of them was, ironically, for those of you who are watching this on video rather than hearing it, um, was personalized shampoo, where people would cut off a lock of their hair, they'd mail it to us, we'd formulate a custom blend, and they'd subscribe to it. I pitched him personalized sporting goods, I pitched him vitamins, I pitched him custom dog food, and I
Wow.
pitched him video rental by mail. And that was also a ridiculous idea because back then, you may remember this, video used to come on those VHS cassettes, and that was a bad idea. But a little bit later, this new technology came out called the DVD, like a CD, a little plastic disc with a movie on it. And we realized that we could ship this thing through the mail, and thus got the completely irrational idea that maybe we could do video rental by mail. They'd come to the website, they'd pick out a movie, we'd mail it to them, they'd watch it for a week and mail it back. And
Wow.
on April 14th of 1998, we launched a company that did just that. No
Wow.
streaming video. If you wanted a movie, it was on a DVD, and we mailed it to you. And we did that for 8, 9 long years of trying to figure out what was the model for this.
I see.
And as for the name, if you got a second, I can quickly tell you that also was a ridiculous journey. Anyone who's an entrepreneur listening to this knows how brutally hard it is to name things. That you got to find something which is catchy. Hopefully, it sounds like the thing you're trying to do. You got to be able to spell it. It can't mean something obscene in a foreign language. You need the domain name, a trade.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. So we were struggling. And we had a whiteboard, and we had 2 columns, and one was words that were evocative of the internet, one was words that were evocative of movies, and we'd draw lines between them.
I see.
And there were weird names, and Netflix was one of the early ones, and we hated Netflix. And we hated it because, for 2 reasons. Back in that time, again, probably before your time, the word for a porno was a skin flick. That was a nickname for a porno.
Okay,
So
I did not know that.
licks. Oh boy, it sounds like, and of course, porn was the early adopter technology for almost
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
So everyone's going, you got to think it's a porno site. And that big X at the end doesn't help any. But, we went through this whole process and couldn't find anything better. And so it was a little bit porny, but Netflix it was.
Well, it worked out. I guess the Netflix and chill joke makes sense now.
It does. Isn't that crazy? And man, if you had asked me back in 1998 if that was going to happen, man, never in a million years. You know, having your company become a verb and a meme, wow. Then you've made it.
Yeah, that's true, and it's such an iconic and legendary name now, Netflix. I'm sure everyone has used Netflix. What a cool story. I'm glad you told me there was no aha moment or spark because that's the next question that we can skip over that one. Another question I want to ask you was you're a believer that there's no such thing as a good idea, and on your website you have bad crossed out. And you talk about how, remember, there's no such thing as a bad idea. You think that that saying is bullshit. And you also mentioned there are plenty of bad ideas. In fact, I believe there's no such thing as a good idea. Can you please elaborate and explain to me and my audience why you feel this way?
Yeah, everybody, you know, you go to you have this great idea, and you go to your friends, and you go, "This great idea," and you tell them your idea, and they all go the same thing. They go, "That'll never work." Um,
It's the
and
name
the
of your book.
reality is, it's impossible to tell because we've all had the experience where someone tells us an idea, and we go, "That's to ourselves, of course. That's the stupidest thing ever." And then, holy mackerel, it ends up being Dropbox or something, something huge idea. Or they tell you one and you go, "Oh my God, that's amazing." And then it crashes and burns. But the point is that I really believe there's no such thing as a good idea because it's impossible to come up with an idea that will work if you're doing something that hasn't been done before. The odds are like winning the lottery. Every successful company that you can name is become successful not doing the thing they originally started doing, because that is the entrepreneurial process. You start with something ridiculous with great enthusiasm, and all of a sudden it collides with the real world, and you realize, oh man, I had no clue what was going to happen. But what's also quintessentially entrepreneurial is going, oh my gosh, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
What I thought would happen didn't work, but look what this person did. Or my gosh, they loved this little weird thing, which I thought was a little small part of the product, but that's the part they're all using. It creates this back and forth where you turn slowly a bad idea into a good idea. But the reason I like to hammer on people, no such thing as a good idea, is too many of us, and especially you teens out there, get fixated on I can't start until I'm confident I've got a good idea. Like I go around and ask everybody, is this good? And if they say no, I don't do it. Or I keep doing all this research for months or weeks or years, trying to get the confidence it's actually going to be it's going to work. And you never get there. And what I've done, and what every successful entrepreneur has done, is just start, even if you don't know if it's going to work or not. It's the process of starting, which is where you figure it all out. That's why I say stop looking for a good idea. Take take a bad idea. Listen, pick a bad idea with a little promise maybe, but don't be don't be scared to start if you don't know what's going to happen. That's the whole point. And
Yeah.
only by starting, only by taking that first step, only by colliding your idea with a real customer, do you begin the process of figuring out why it's a bad idea and beginning the process of turning it little by little, twist and turn into a good idea.
So would you say then when you started Netflix, it was a bad idea, and then over time you turned it into a good idea?
Oh my God, it was a terrible idea. The reason the book is called That Will Never Work is because that is what everyone told me. All the investors told me that. All my early employees were telling me that. My friends and my wife, when I pitched her the idea for Netflix, said that was the stupidest thing she'd ever heard. But, lo and behold, when we finally launched, they were all right. It was a bad idea. It didn't work. Um, but over the period of about a year and a half, we kept trying and trying and trying to figure out some way to make DVD rental by mail work. And it took us almost 18 months, a bit more than 18 months, to finally figure out what was the business model, what were we delivering to a customer that did work, that actually did make us more money than it cost us to provide the service, what did lay the groundwork for little by little evolving the business into what ultimately became the very, very big business of the streaming. But
Yeah.
it all started by mailing a DVD and seeing what happened and not being discouraged that it didn't work. I didn't expect it to work. I expected to learn something, but what I fully believed 100 is that I'll figure it out. I don't know what's going to happen. I will figure it out, and we did.
Definitely. I love it. I mean, I think that that's so true. A lot of people always are looking for the good idea. Um, and I love how you named your book too. That will never work. That was very interesting. Um, and yeah, I love it. You also talked about how for teens listening, you don't need to over plan. Just start doing stuff, even if you don't know it, the whole plan figured
It's
out. I love
listen.
that.
I get it. It's scary because first of all, when you're a teen, you don't know anything, so you're
Yeah.
always doing stuff where you're not good at it. Um, but it's like using an analogy. I don't know if you're into sports. Eventually when you're a junior or a senior, oh wow, I'm a pretty good lacrosse player, pretty good football player. But listen, when you were 5 and you were playing in a kids league, you were pretty bad.
Yeah.
But it's okay. You didn't mind doing that. And it's like I don't know if you speak how many languages you speak, Sachin, but learning a second language is like that. You got to be in a grown ass man, and you
Yeah.
walk into a coffee shop in France and open your mouth to order coffee, and out comes something that sounds like you're 5 years old again.
Yeah.
And that's the way you learn, is by
That's
making
true.
mistakes, and it's no different. And so that fear that I'm going to screw it up is so universal, and that's the biggest skill ever, is overcoming the fear of looking stupid, because there's no other way around it.
I love that. That is very well said. I'm curious, you brought this up also in the beginning of the interview, and I definitely want to talk about this. You're a huge proponent of work-life balance, and you have an absolutely beautiful and amazing LinkedIn post that went viral about this. Can you tell my audience a little more about your Tuesday date nights with your wife, and how also you're proud that you're not an entrepreneur on their seventh startup and seventh wife? Um,
Yeah.
and then also, why is work-life balance just so important and close to you?
So listen, I mean, you're still in your teens, but I when I was in my late 20s, so another 10 years or more for you and for your audience, I was working like crazy. I mean, I was doing startups. I loved it. I worked all day into the night, weekends, early in the morning, because I loved it. But at the time, I had a girlfriend. I was living with my girlfriend at the time, and it kind of was pretty obvious to me, maybe with some hints from her, that this was not the basis of a sustainable long-term relationship. Um, why? Hello.
Oh, nice. The dog wants to join the
Sorry.
podcast. That's no, I love it. It's
We had a
awesome.
little,
It's
we had a
awesome.
dog make an entry for those of you who are just listening to this. Um, anyway, so she made it aware that this was not sustainable. That if I really wanted to be an entrepreneur and have a relationship with my girlfriend, that I had to fix some things. And
Yeah.
for me, it was even more complicated because my passion, my personal passion, is outdoors stuff. Backcountry skiing or mountain biking or kayaking or surfing. Unfortunately, these are all hobbies you cannot do between your 1 o'clock meeting and your 3 o'clock call. And so to make these three things work, I would have to figure out how to balance the three of them so I could be successful doing startups, which by itself is a never ending demand in your time. But it became, in many ways, the single most important problem I tried to solve in my life. How do I have a startup and still make time for my family and my friends, and still make time to feed my own soul by getting out in the woods when I needed to? And it's I've been working on it for 40 years. And the thing that you describe in the LinkedIn post was basically describing one of the tactics that I used, which is every Tuesday, 5 p.m., without fail, every Tuesday, I would leave the office, leave my phone behind, and my wife would get a sitter, and we'd go out and have a date night. And it was religious. And I don't care if there is a crisis, we're going to wrap it up by 5. Or you have to talk to me, we're going to do it on the way to the car. And it was remarkable because, as difficult as that was, because there are crises and there are people who need to chat with you. Amazingly, after a number of weeks of this, the crises stopped happening, or at least they happened before 5 o'clock. And the people who needed to talk to me learned to schedule it earlier in the day. And most importantly, I pay lip service. Everyone says, oh, we're all about balance. We want you to have a life. But I was modeling that behavior, which just speaks way louder than just saying it. And I was really happy to see that other people began carving out time in their life. And
Yeah.
you're right when you brought up, the seventh. I didn't want to be the guy in my seventh startup and my seventh wife. And, I've had a whole bunch of success. I mean, I've had 2 of my companies are multi-billion-dollar companies. 3 of them have had IPOs. But lots of people have business success. But I think what I'm proudest of is the fact that I was able to have that business success while still having the time to have a very healthy family life. My kids growing, I'm my first wife. I had my kids grow up knowing me. Best I can tell, they like me. I still have been able to get out for the last 40 years and do all the outdoor stuff. That's hard.
That
That I'm
is.
proud of. And I think that's a model to anybody that it is possible to have that type of business success without totally submerging every other interest in your life. You can do it all. You can have it all.
I love that. That's super inspiring, especially for the teen audience. Um, and it's beautiful how you're able to do that. It's absolutely wonderful. As we wrap up here, I want to ask you before the last two questions that I ask, in moments of failure or uncertainty, how did you keep faith in the journey? Like, would you say it was motivation, discipline, grit, mindset, or like something else?
Yeah, it's neat. I don't know what it is. It's for me. Listen, when I became an entrepreneur, there wasn't a thing of being an entrepreneur. There weren't podcasts about it. There weren't TV shows or movies. Uh, Entrepreneurs were just crazy people who couldn't hold a regular job. So it wasn't like I was drawn to it because I wanted to make money or be famous or anything like that. I was just curious. And when you're curious, it doesn't really matter if things work or not, because what you want out of it is to see what happens. And if that's the reason you start a company, it's not like if it fails or doesn't work, you've blown it. Oh my God, I learned so much from that. And every day, listen, there's disappointment. You do something that doesn't work and you go, oh crap, I was so hopeful for that. But hours later, you're going, oh, but I wondered if we tried this. And
Yeah,
all of a sudden, you've got your energy back.
I love
And
it.
it just goes to show, if you are interested in being an entrepreneur, you do it for the right reasons, which is you don't do it for wealth or fame, because you're unlikely to have either of those things happen. But if
Yeah,
you do it because you love solving interesting problems, it's the best possible job in the world. And
I
one last thing,
agree.
I know we can go a couple minutes long if we have to, but
Yeah.
the other thing is, you think you screwed up. It's really hard to tell if you did or not, because like there's a famous story of when we tried to sell Netflix to Blockbuster. Um, and at the time, Netflix was in desperate situation. And I said to myself, I have one thing I have to do. I've got to make this deal happen. Otherwise, we're out of business. And I failed. I was not able to sell Netflix to Blockbuster. And they left without not even not helping us. They were going to compete with us. And I tell you, that was the biggest disappointment ever. That was the biggest failure ever. But was it? You know,
The biggest win
was that in
ever.
fact the best possible thing that could have ever
Yeah.
happened to me? And it just goes to show, you know,
Wow.
don't beat yourself up. You never know when the thing that you think was the biggest screw up in your life turns out to be the best thing ever. You break up with someone, you're crushed, and like 2 months later, you meet someone even better. And if you hadn't broken up with the person, you would never have met that person. So go easy on yourself is the
That's
lesson there.
I love that. It's a very positive way to look at life. As we wrap up here, Mark, these are the last two questions that I asked all my guests.
Cool.
The first one is, what's your all-time best advice for teens?
This is the thing is, it starting something only gets harder. I mean, right now, assuming you're in a relatively normal situation, you've got a roof over your head, you've got a bed to sleep in, you've got someone else who is bringing in the money. Um, the risk of you starting something and failing is like zero. It's not like your mom's going to go, Sachin, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to let you go because you
Yeah.
screwed that up.
Yeah.
So it's incredibly great time to take big risks. It'll be harder when you're in college. It'll be even harder when you're out having to have a day job. And believe me, it gets really hard when you've got a mortgage to pay and car payments and kids in school. So use this time to practice. Don't start. I did all kinds of weird stuff. I started clubs, I started publications, I sold things, I set up stands, and I learned these basic principles of entrepreneurship, of how to convince people to come and help me even when I couldn't pay them. How do I get resources for myself? And boy, I was practicing that stuff for years before I started what you would consider a real company. So don't don't think you have to wait, you know? So that's my advice. Start now. Sorry
It's
for the
great.
long
It's
answer, but
great.
can't
No,
help it.
that's great advice. Thank you so much. Last question of the day, Mark, is what was your favorite part of being a guest on the Ochakde show today?
So by far, it was just the fact that I'm a guest on the show today. And the fact that I'm a guest is completely a testament to your persistence.
Thank
I
you.
think one of the most important skill sets an entrepreneur can have is persistence. Because if you're going to try hundreds of things and have none of them work, if you don't keep plugging away with a good attitude, you're toast. And I don't know, I didn't go back and look back and go how many years ago you first reached out to me
Yeah.
to get on the show. But what was great, it was more than persistence, it was polite persistence. You were never obnoxious about it. But I think you were getting desperate that you were not going to be a teenager anymore by the time I finally said yes. And that would really have thrown a wrench in the works. But anyway, congratulations to you for really demonstrating that the most important principle of entrepreneurship is at play, which is you don't ask, you don't get.
Yep.
And you don't take no for an answer, that you continue to gently and politely press, and who knows, occasionally great things happen.
I love it. That is a great way to end off the episode. Thank you so much, Mark, for being on the show. Guys, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys next time.